morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice.
Good morning, pineapples. I'm Austin Peterson. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. Happy New Year. Is it a happy New Year, though? A very toxic New Year. We're going to talk about it this morning in the first hour. A Las Vegas Cybertruck incident. On New Year's Day, a Tesla Cybertruck exploded outside of Trump International Hotel Tower in Las Vegas. We're going to talk about that this morning, as well as another incident in New Orleans. Early on January 1st, 2025, a terror attack in New Orleans saw a man drive a pickup truck into a crowd on Bourbon Street. Is this the new threat? And what is the face of terror? It's one that we are quite familiar with, sadly. We're going to talk about that, but guess what? You don't watch the Wake Up America show so that you can be like, oh, the world is ending, nothing matters, or everything matters and we must be Nazis and fascists. No, we're going to stay true to the course. In 2025, we're going to renew. We're going to double down and go for 21. I'm showing 11. I'm going to double down, take a hit. 21, not quite blackjack, but still going to win me the game. Liberty. We're going to double down on Lady Liberty. Everything's coming up roses. This time, for me. Shut up, Bethel Mormon. I'm Austin Peterson, and only on the Wake Up America show can you get hardcore references to the most masculine American things, machine guns, and being a real man, and Hulk Hogan, alongside a little bit of musical theater. I like all the entertainment, don't you? Come on. It's, we're defending American culture, right? Chicks and ducks and geese better scurry when I take you out in the Surrey. When I take you out in the Surrey with the fringe on top. Huh? The wheels are yellow, the upholstery's brown. The dashboard's genuine leather. No? Start with fringe on top? Okay, Austin, shut up. All right. There will be a call to action. We will talk about unity, and we will promote the agenda that is America first, and that is, to me, economic freedom and personal liberty. 2025. Let's double down. We're going to talk about the importance of coming together to advance a shared vision of liberty and resilience. I'm going to ask you to join the cause and engage with my content, participate in helping to shape a positive 2025, please. These are the tests, the challenges that we must all face, and there is nothing that we can beat. There is no terrorism or war or disease that can possibly stamp out the human spirit when we are resilient. When we stand together. Alone, we are but a single stick, but banded together, we are a mighty faggot. Bundle of sticks. We've got a couple of great guests on the Wake Up America show today. Rare Camellia joins us. Everybody loves Camellia because you think she's cute. Quit drooling. All right, it's not a normal Thirsty Thursday, though, unless the ladies love, sexy Jewish guys. Brian Eskow joins us this morning at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. He's in California, though, so it's much earlier there. What about Daniela? Stop it with your thirst trap. She'll be back next week. Plus, you should be watching Culturama anyway. It's Thursday. Thursday's a great day. You get to watch me, the Wake Up America show, and since it's not just me anymore, it's a whole crew. It's for Liberty Network, and that's two more shows as part of our Liberty Network. Culturama, Daniela Pensac is the star. You can see her tonight at 7 p.m. Central Time. And then at 9 p.m., the boys take over. The boys are back in town. Thursday night, tonight, Liberty Tonight. We want liberty tonight. I feel like chicken tonight. Like chicken tonight. Anybody old enough to remember those ads? Like chicken tonight. I feel like King Libertarian tonight. The benevolent monarch of all libertarians. The only dictator that I would ever accept. And Brian Piotr, of course, on Liberty Tonight. So, starting tonight, 7 p.m. till 11 p.m., you will be watching the shows. I will cut off your Schwanzenstück. Yeah? Is that a threat? It's terrorism. Islamic terrorism, domestic terrorism, domestic extremism. What are the things that... oh, please, for the love of God. Are we live? Oh, my God. You guys, it scared the crap out of me. Matt Unruh says, I forget, is there a show today? Oh, it's 6:04 a.m. I like, Matt Unruh, what the hell? I just saw his text message, and I was just like... Oh, I thought that like for like the last 10 minutes that I was ranting to nobody that I didn't press the go live button, which I've totally done before. So anyways, Matt, there is a show today. And we're live, right? I believe so. I just texted back. Smiley face. Don't forget, if you haven't already, to please click the like button. You can text the show. Let me know what's on your mind at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. That's the text line in order to get your thoughts to me. Send me your thoughts at the text line. The number that you see on the screen, that's my marketing. And you're not supposed to tell people that you're collecting their information for marketing purposes because then they don't sign up and they don't do it. But I also like to just kind of be honest and transparent about the fact that I am running a business. It's a podcasting business for libertynetwork.com, kind of cool. And I've got an e-commerce business on the side, right? This is all kind of like, I don't know, like maybe the boring behind the scenes, slang and jargon. It's a merch shop and a swinging badass podcast. That's what it is. But if you sign up for my text message list, we don't spam you. We just give you things like discounts on merchandise and let you know about the new merchandise that's coming out, right? Like our freaking delicious teas for liberty. Oh, guys, if you haven't, real quick, we're going to get to the big news here in just a moment. But if you want to unlock the bonus content, then I might suggest today that you go and you buy our flagship tea from the new tea collection. People will be like, tea collection? I didn't know you had a tea collection. I'm just back here today. I'm just hearing about this. Yes, if you go to forlibertyshop.com, you'll see our For Liberty. I know, cheesy, right? But still, and our new packaging is just coming in, started coming this week. And so are the 5-star reviews. Thank you, Doug. Doug, a.k.a. Clementine. Oh, look at him down there. He's got his little shirt on with the tea. Boston Harbor Black. The new packages came in this week. Boston Harbor Black, our English breakfast loose leaf tea. Now listen, you can buy it, but I suggest you don't recommend that you do not throw it in the harbor. Unless you're really, really mad at me and you want to compel, but you have to write a declaration if you want to do something like that. You have to write a long letter by hand with a feather ink pen about why thou dost not wish to watch the Wake Up America show anymore. But if you want to support the show and help to unlock the bonus content today, we've got a mini documentary on tap for you that I think you guys will like. Then head over to forlibertyshop.com and sign up for some Boston Harbor Black English breakfast loose leaf tea. If we hit $75 raised either in purchases or in Rumble Rants, then we will unlock the bonus content. And don't forget, guys, you can gift subscriptions, which is new over on Rumble. It's exciting. So hook us up. We're going to spread liberty in 2025. We're going to fight for the principles that you and I believe in. So help support the cause. Buy some delicious tea or gift some subs for some people here that are your friends. Think about all the cool people that you've been hanging out with in the Wake Up America show live stream over at rumble.com. Help us out and gift some subs to some of your friends. Good morning to 5D Con HIS, John Rail, my lovely wife Stephanie. Great to see you. Matt Unruh is here. John Rail, David Lee, Grizz Cheese. We like our Grizzard. John Grizzard. Quest Fanning is here with us, as well as Bruce Burt Whistle, and is it the Isle of Wight, Guernsey, Southcott. We watched a little video about your island the other day. Jose, MMA, what's up, brother? It's nice to see everybody. Thanks for joining me, guys. Don't forget, click that like button. If thou hast not, let's talk about the news. On New Year's Day, a Tesla Cybertruck exploded outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas, resulting in the death of the driver, whose name was Matthew Livelsberger, and it also caused injuries to at least 7 bystanders. The vehicle was filled with fireworks and possible explosives. The FBI is investigating this as a potential act of terrorism. The truck was rented through a car-sharing app known as Turo, Turo. Haven't heard of it yet. Today's the first time I'm reading about this new car-sharing app. The public reaction has been, of course, immediately conspiracy theorizing about this from every single angle. I always think it's wise to wait and see, right? Because a lot of people have stuck their foot in their mouths over the years, reporting on stories. The Las Vegas sheriff actually, interestingly, noted that the Cybertruck's frame actually limited the blast, even protecting the Trump Hotel. This is how amazing these vehicles may or not be. This is from Marjorie Taylor Greene, Congresswoman. This is her official account, not the parody. She said that she was impressed over the holidays when she tried out the full self-driving feature of a Cybertruck. It drove me to Starbucks and home flawlessly. Why do you go to Starbucks? You need to drink founding flavors. What's wrong with you, Marjorie Taylor Greene? Not very patriotic. Alderney. Thank you, Southcott. But it's even more impressive that the integrity of the Cybertruck saved lives from the LV terrorist bomb. Now they need to release the name of the terrorist who did this. She'd said this yesterday at 7:19 p.m. And since then, we have learned that the name of the alleged terrorist, let's say alleged terrorist. I mean, he's dead, so it's kind of hard. You say alleged, but definitely a truck blew up, but it's alleged that it's Matthew Livelsberger, but he's dead, so he's not going to really receive a trial. So it's tough. It's a tough one. It's a toughie. Terror, maybe. Yeah, seems like it. I'll be willing to believe it. I need a few more days until I can confirm something like that for you. Although it seems to be a bit more black and white with the New Orleans terror incident. New Orleans, how do you say it? Early on January 1st, 2025, a terror attack in New Orleans saw a man drive a pickup truck into a crowd on Bourbon Street, killing at least 15 people and injuring over 30. The suspect, Shamsud Din Jabbar, was an Army veteran and was killed by the police. An ISIS flag was found on his vehicle. Of course, the FBI confirmed that it is treating this as well as an act of terrorism, with further investigation into possible accomplices due to discovered IEDs. The security implications are the question here. But what can we do about someone who managed to serve in the U.S. Army? It leads one to wonder just what's going on with our nation's military. And it is not new to have U.S. military soldiers go on homicidal rampages. Unfortunately, this is just going on my memory. Please don't quote me on this one, but there was an incident in Texas from a university tower where a man was a sniper and this was in the 50s or perhaps early 60s. And he was kind of considered to be like the first mass shooter in the United States, I believe. Don't quote me on this one. And that was like, I believe was a military veteran. Please don't quote me on that one, guys. I'm actually asking my live audience, if you wouldn't mind, pop me over with the name of that man. But I know for sure that Lee Harvey Oswald, who shot John F. Kennedy from the third floor of the Book Depository in Dealey Plaza, Texas, acting alone in doing so, shooting him with a Carcano rifle from the third floor of the Book Depository, and firing 3 shots in succession, 2 of which landed and none of which were magic. Oh, started to see you just lost all your audience there. I just thought it was funny to describe it that way. Well, another military veteran there. And so it's not uncommon for things like this to happen. And it is one of the reasons, constitutional or not, that the government actually puts more scrutiny on military veterans, specifically special forces military veterans, whenever they do apply for gun purchases. For example, my father is a former Green Beret. He served in the Special Forces in the 1960s. I believe he graduated from jump school in 1969. Dad, if you're listening, and I got it wrong on that one, I need to check the diploma that you gave to me with your Green Beret and that nice little box that's hanging on the wall. But I believe it was 1969 that he graduated from jump school. And now whenever Dad goes to buy a present for me, or like a gun for himself, then they always do an FBI hold for a day, which is kind of fascinating because these are the people, on one hand, these are the people who sacrifice, put their life on the line to put themselves to the ultimate test of their spiritual and physical abilities by becoming a member of the U.S. Special Forces. And then what are they rewarded with? Increased scrutiny when they come out on the back end. And some people will say this is definitely not deserved because many of these people are patriotic heroes who serve our country and they deserve the ultimate respect. And I do agree with that. And then on the other side of things, you have people who say that we've created very dangerous monsters that in many ways, if they are set wrong one way or another, or if they have a mental breakdown in one way or another, they become very dangerous tools of destruction. And of course, the suspect, Shamsuddin Jabbar, was not Special Forces, but he was an Army veteran. Apparently, he tried to join the Navy, but dropped out after a month, then later joined the Army and did serve overseas in a combat role from what I am reading so far. An ISIS flag was found on the back of his vehicle, and it's going to be an interesting question of whether or not there were actual ties to ISIS or whether or not he was just radicalized. Whether or not he was actually had ties to the terror organization. We're going to go to a quick break, guys. I got somebody walking in here, and I got to go hand something off for a package so that you guys can have fun tomorrow for the show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Less than 5 minutes. Make sure you click that like button. Go buy some tea while I'm gone. I'll be right back on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Do you hate the deep state? Yes, actually, I have to thank Elon Musk specifically. He gave us quite a bit of additional information in regards to how the vehicle was locked after it exploded due to the force of the nature of the force from the explosion, as well as being able to capture all of the video from the Tesla charging stations across the country, and he sent that directly to us, so I appreciate his help on that. I'll take one more question. Good morning. Happy New Year. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. We're glad and thankful to have you here. The evil knuckleheads picked the wrong vehicle for a terrorist attack. The Cybertruck actually contained the explosion and directed the blast upwards, wrote Elon Musk. Not even the glass doors of the lobby were broken. Thanks, Elon, for making a nice Cybertruck. I love how he calls these guys who literally tried to blow up Trump Tower in Las Vegas knuckleheads.
Just a vehicle fire. And so there's going to be a drone video that's just a vehicle fire. And so there's going to be a drone video that plays to my left again. You'll see as the fire initially, they covered it with the tarp to try to get it to go out. Once the fire went out through the suppression efforts of the fire department, you'll see some of the evidence in the back of the vehicle.
Yeah, so
those are gasoline canisters. They are camp fuel canisters and large firework mortars.
Yeah. A giant bomb.
What I also would like you to pay attention to on that video, as you see that, it looks like the exterior of that truck is completely intact as it sits there.
Look at this. This is the back end of this Cybertruck. We all kind of laughed when Elon Musk debuted his vehicle, the Cybertruck, and he was like, oh, it's bulletproof, and then he threw these giant, heavy steel balls into the windows, and they smashed. Well, here it is. The Cybertruck, that was an early model. Check out this model. The sides of the vehicle intact. Instead of blowing out and open, it blew up and went straight up. The blast was contained inside the vehicle and went straight up rather than inside. Didn't even break the glass windows of the hotel. Evil knuckleheads.
The fact that this was a Cybertruck really limited the damage that occurred inside of the valet, because it had most of the blast go up through the truck and out. In fact, if you look on that video, you'll see that the front glass doors at the Trump hotel were not even broken by that blast.
Wow.
Which they were parked directly in front of. You can see that in the video there.
So these evil knuckleheads, as we will call them, they shall henceforth be referred. The evil knuckleheads wanted to make a point. This is just my best guess here. Wanted to make a point, and to make a point on a symbolic point about Elon Musk and Donald Trump by blowing up a Cybertruck in front of Trump Towers. And they were smart enough, in their own minds, they had cooked up this plan. They were brilliant enough to think, yes, January 1st. And they have French accents in this fantasy. January 1st, on New Year's Day, we will go to Trump Towers and we will put a bomb in the Cybertruck and then we will blow it up and then the media will show how, it will talk about how evil the billionaire is who controls Donald Trump and he's the president in waiting. Right? Those Canaan days we used to know, where have they gone, where did they go? Eh bien, raise your berets to those Canaan days. Terrorists need to study more, you think? Where have they gone, where did they go? Both vehicles that were involved in both terror incidents, both in New Orleans and in Las Vegas, were rented through the rideshare app Turo, and there is a military connection between the suspects. However, there is no definitive link between the two incidents themselves that have been confirmed. We don't know what or if any connection happened, if there is any connection between these two incidents, and I will not speculate on something like that until there is hard confirmation. Oh, Stephen Rue this morning joining us. Yes, a little Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I guess I was thinking about it because of your recent production over at Raymore Peculiar High School. Stephen, congratulations, sir. Oh, thank you very much. It was great seeing you at Christmas time. Thank you for inviting us to your church. We had a very nice time. Eh bien, raise your berets to those Canaan days. Former CIA handler warns we're not ready for the threat level of terror attacks in the homeland that we may be facing at this point.
We have not had a man walk up to a building with a suicide vest on the United States. Americans don't understand this. Al-Qaeda knows this, right? So this is new and innovative, especially now you don't have to walk upside of the building. You can walk in the building because of the advancement of the vest. The other thing is, in the United States, we haven't had Fideian attackers. So the concept is the terrorist fights to the death. So he's not exactly a suicide bomber, but he will fight till either all of us are dead or all of his people are dead. We think it's going to be a swarming attack, right? Multiple different attacks at one time across multiple cities. I think there will be suicide bombers just because some of the attackers went through suicide bomber training and they have these vests. And then we think there's these Fideian attackers who will carry on until they're killed.
You just rephrase that. So these guys are trained and they are going to fight until they're killed.
Yes, and that matters, right? So I was watching this video and it was a suicide bombing in Kabul years ago. The bomber blew up and then everyone starts moving in, the first responders move in, right? And then another guy walks in and blows up. We know this is a tactic, but if Americans don't understand this as a tactic and don't understand these attackers are gonna fight to the death, think about that. Battle's going on, the attacker surrenders, he might have the suicide vest, we let our guard down. That man came to die, right? He's gonna fight till he dies or you dies. So we can't let our guards down, and they know our weakness. So we have to be very careful that we don't have more people die in these second and third order effects of not knowing their intent.
Interesting. There's a lot of different ways that I could look at this, right? Fighting an enemy like this, there is something of, there's not an isolationism in practice in terms of how the government behaves around the world and in stirring up extremism around the world. But there is something of an isolationist in the American mind. We tend to be very inwardly focused, and rightfully so. The United States is vast. Our territories are wide. We have a culture that can be very isolated and insular, and in doing so, it leads us to what we call what I would call a sense of normalcy. A normalcy bias, I think, is what cognitive psychiatric or psychologists would suggest. There is a normalcy bias that almost all of us have on a regular day's basis, that when we walk around going about our daily lives, that for the most part we assume normalcy, and many of us, perhaps most of us, don't prepare for the worst days of our lives. And it is unfortunate that the United States can't just be free of external foes and external threats and domestic foes and domestic threats and those who would seek to do harm to us and to our loved ones here in the place where we should be at peace in the United States. But I would argue that the United States, noting that the centuries that the United States has existed have coincided with near total war, that it really is only now that we're experiencing the kind of chaos and pain and suffering that the rest of the world has to experience in a much more up close and personal kind of way. The terror attacks like these, happening in Europe, it shocks the senses to see things happen in the United States like this. And of course, we can say on one hand, well, we could blame radical Islam for this, and there's certainly a discussion to be made about the particularly violent nature of Islam and the problems of having barbaric third world ideologies make their way to the United States via social media and through culture and through mainstream or legacy media biases that have weaponized empathy of Americans and in many ways made us weak, taken advantage of our capacity to feel, right? Our clear emotional attachment to human life is at once our greatest strength and also our greatest weakness. In the weaponizing of empathy of Americans who generally tend to value life, and we have a Supreme Court that certainly reflects that in many ways, and in a massive election sweep of red states and red counties, really, county by county, if you look at the county maps of the United States versus the blue county maps, then you'll see an ocean of red with tiny little islands of blue for the most part. So this difference in thinking, this difference in opinion in the United States which exists between the two major parties, or if you might say the two major ruling ideologies, if you're to be completely clear, have stirred up all of this resentment in the United States of average American citizens who have, going around their days with normalcy biases, have a difficult time sort of comprehending where the hatred of them stems from and why their fellow American citizens are being so radicalized. Now, for those who may be there are different ways of looking at American culture and politics and civics based on your geographic area, the way that you were raised and born, what particular religion you may be, and perhaps your ethnic background and your traditions. And so there is many different ways of analyzing scenarios like New Orleans and Las Vegas as there are people in this country. There are 333 million opinions. But can we say, firstly, that there is objective truth, that facts are facts, even when they don't care about our feelings, and that perhaps many times our feelings, our emotions, our empathy for others has put us into a precarious situation from a national, international, domestic security standpoint, and this needs to change. Now, what does this mean? Should we be like Switzerland and have a national draft or military service where everybody has to serve? And in Switzerland, they arm their entire population and they're famously neutral and everybody gets a gun, but the gun has to be locked up and there's strict regulations about which gun you can own and how many of them and for what purposes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? In many ways, the Swiss model has aspects of it which are quite intoxicating. But in some ways, they're prepared. They haven't gone to war since the late 1800s, right? But they haven't had to. But of course, they have natural barriers to invasions. But of course, now we live in the 21st century. If somebody wants to bomb Switzerland, it's just as easy to bomb Switzerland as it is to bomb the United States. And notwithstanding the single fact that it seems as if our police agencies, specifically the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI, is not adequately doing its job in preventing the kinds of crimes that might be preventable if they weren't so focused on policing the body politic. Can I get an amen on that? Policing our opinions online. When people like myself, homegrown Americans, are constantly suppressed online, constantly censored, constantly demonetized, constantly pushed back to the back of the line for standing up for what we believe in, when the principles that I advocate are the principles of the American founding fathers, when people like myself are not able to stand up and voice an opinion that goes counter not only to mainstream American culture, but let's be honest, like my views and my opinions are not even fashionable on the right these days. Like I have to say things that are quite unpopular to people whose political party, who have the same letter after their last name as me, right? And soldier on and fight suppression and censorship from them as well. Like the people who are the first to claim, oh God, they're being suppressed, they're being censored, will turn around and run those same woke suppression tactics against their same cancel culture tactics against their own people. I've seen it 100 times. Right? They'll run those same cancel culture tactics that they despise against their own people when somebody has the nerve to tell them the truth and to maybe they need to remove the mote from their own eye before they remove the speck of dust from somebody else's eye, right? And we're going to discuss things like that with our buddy Brian Eskow, who's going to join us at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. Camellia will be here at 8 a.m., so 20 minutes from now, CJ is going to join us this morning to talk a little bit about a story that has nothing to do with terrorism, but I think it's a fascinating story. It's about an entire generation. What happens when an entire generation never grows up? Little Peter Pan syndrome conversation at 8 a.m. with my friend Camellia, and we're going to make you smile. It'll be fun, right? We're going to shit all over the millennials. But that's okay, because I am one. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. We'd be glad to have you become a regular guest of the Wake Up America show, and if you do so, then you'll have to click that follow button. Every Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time, you can join the stream. That's right here at rumble.com/AP4Liberty. That's the number 4 Liberty. And that's the network, right? 4 Liberty Network is the overarching network that this show runs on. It's brand new. We just launched it at the end of 2024. So here in 2025, we're at 4libertynetwork.com. We're using Rumble and Locals as the basis, the centerpiece of our content creation scheme. And I'm sure glad that we are, because without Rumble, I think the Wake Up America show probably would have folded and gone bye-bye a long time ago. But because of the good people over at rumble.com not suppressing my speech like YouTube does, not demonetizing me like YouTube does, and not deboosting me because of bad words or curse words like does happen on X, just reality, it's what it is. It's fine. It's Elon's platform. Right, but I have made my home at rumble.com/AP4Liberty, and that's the Wake Up America show's website. That's the page, the show page. But the network, of course, is 3 shows, and the other 2 shows air on Tuesday and Thursday nights. So my goal in 2025 is to build up this network so that we have more live shows. And more live shows means more liberty, means more freedom. So that's what I want in 2025. It's the antidote to the toxin, to the toxic poisons. But the resilience of the American people will always surprise you. Just when we are counted out, just when the world looks and says, here's our opportunity now. Here is our opportunity now to say, you know, the Americans are out, that their currency is devalued, that BRICS is going to take over, and that there's no hope, that the libertarians are stupid and evil and the cause of all of our problems. Whenever this happens, and whenever Americans, the liberty spirit of Americans is threatened or challenged, Americans typically tend to rise to the occasion. We have seen resilience in the past, such as after 9/11, when our country rallied together. And despite what you might feel about the Afghanistan or Iraq wars, and many of your opinions, I guess I would probably share, Americans did band together. And certainly those checks of goodwill have been cashed, and we now are in a situation where we need to engender goodwill again. But I believe in the American spirit, and I believe in our ability to band together in the face of terror. Let's not let these terrorist attacks divide us even further. Let us not let them be what everyone remembers 2025 for. I saw somebody posting a meme yesterday saying, I already screwed up, 2026 is going to be my year, which is funny, admittedly, but it's only been one day. Today is the 2nd. I don't even count this week as like, we get a do-over essentially. Next week, we'll say, is 2025. We'll just cut this week out of the calendar and we'll say, yeah, you don't like it, hoes mad. That was 2025? No, that was last year. The Tesla Cybertruck stuff, Trump stuff, right? We're just going to compartmentalize that and we're going to swallow our pain like an acid pill, and we're going to take it and we're going to take the pain, and we're not going to let our empathy be weaponized against us or to talk us into another no-win war, no-win engagement, right? We're going to highlight the economic recovery since COVID-19, right? We are looking at potential job growth and job creation and technological advancements in 2025 like the world has never seen. That's America. That's happening now. Right? There was heroism in these events, police officers bravely charging down the suspect and gunning him down, dying in the streets like a dog that he is. Yes, he died like a dog. Abu al-Bakr al-Baghdadi. Division serves no one, and the right-wing libertarian agenda can be a unifying force by promoting individual freedoms and reducing government overreach. We should have open discussions about liberty, personal responsibility, and we should use these incidents as example of why these values matter. I suggest to you getting involved in local politics, supporting candidates who champion these ideals, and creating community groups focused on self-reliance and mutual aid. That's what I'm doing in 2025, building healthy communities. I know that it's toxic out there, and I know that when you turn on, let me just open up to you guys a little bit, like what's going on in my heart. So I have been feeling not depressed, but I have felt like the claws of depression, like coming in, like trying to weigh me down. And I have very thick skin, right? So everything that I've seen and been and done and everything I've been through has given me very thick skin. Lately, though, with the news and things like this, when I'm on social media especially, in order to try and do this job and report to you the news of what's going on and try and give you a little behind the scenes stuff, lately I've just felt as if when I'm opening up the newspaper or a magazine or looking at social media, that I'm just pouring poison directly into my brain. And it is quite difficult to deal with all the pain and the suffering, because being an empathic person, right? If you have empathy, like Americans tend to have, then you feel the pain of the people who are suffering. When you see people who like have children, and you have children, right? Now I have this empathy for other men who are in my situation, who have daughters specifically, like girl dads, they're calling us these days. Now I feel this empathy for people who have had their daughters be victimized in some way that I was never clued into before. And so when I open up the news and I see terrible things happening to men's daughters, I think that's someone's daughter, right? That could be my daughter, right? And I see the way that some people talk about these women, who are, many of them, good women, and many of them who are victimized by men of whatever it does, political ideology, right, background, motives, right, just plain straight up evil being performed on our fellow man and our fellow woman. It's depressing. I see the allure that nihilists have when they say, none of this matters, nothing matters, we're dead, and then it's over, and then nothing matters, we all turn to dust, right? But in some ways, that sort of defeatist attitude, I think, is in itself a form of evil. It's up to us to give our lives meaning. It's up to us to decide, we as individuals, to decide what that meaning is and how we can live life the best that we can. I think most Americans in general want the same things, despite the amount of division that there is, and there's red and blue, and there's white and black, and there's anarchists, and there's communists, and there's socialists. I think most Americans tend to want the same things. We tend to want, safety in our communities, right? Security in our communities. We want to be able to make a good living. We want to be able to have jobs. We want to be able to provide for our families as men, and as women, traditional women in a traditional mindset want to be able to have that safety and security provided to them by the heads of their households in this traditional relationship of a man and a woman, which is not to say that people shouldn't be allowed to have relationships outside of that base. However, let's not kid ourselves that the nuclear family is the basis, the fundamental underpinnings of society relies on the American family, right? And these traditional values of a man and a woman coming together, building a healthy family, having healthy relationships with their children. If that was widespread, if that was popular culture, then you would not see people getting radicalized online, turning into Nazis. You would not see these people online turning to radical ideologies like murderous Islam, Wahhabist Islam. You would not see people going into these forums becoming radicalized because they would have stronger mindsets if we had stronger parents, forming stronger bonds with their children, being concerned about their child's well-being and emotional well-being. And you can't, as a parent, you can't be everything to your child, but you can help provide them with the bones, the structure of a healthy lifestyle, healthy living that will be conducive to a freer, better, safer, and more libertarian America in the United States. So I wonder what you think of all these thoughts. I'm speaking very carefully and speaking off the cuff. There's not a script here. I do have notes, but this is all from my heart. I wonder, is this resonating at all with anyone out there? I would really be interested. Maybe you think I'm way off track, or maybe you think I'm the bad guy. Send me a text, 573-319-1586. I'm laughing at the comments over there. 573-319-1586. Again, the text line is open at 573-319-1586. Okay, so you guys have unlocked the bonus content. Good job. We're going to speak to Camellia Peterson here in less than 10 minutes, but I've unlocked the Cecilia and someone else have unlocked the bonus content this morning for you guys, so you get to watch the awesome mini documentary. It's so important for us to come together and talk about our shared values and talk about our shared vision. So I really hope that if you're new to this community, the Wake Up America Show, For Liberty Network, if you're new and you don't know much about us, but you do like this message, I really just want to invite you to come back, hang out with us, especially tomorrow morning when you really get to see my heart of hearts. My wife Stephanie joins us, and I hope my brother Justin will be with us tomorrow morning on the Wake Up America Show. It's called Freedom Family Friday for a reason, so that's the foundation of what I was talking about. And I want to invite you to join our cause, to become members of the Wake Up America Show's community, help participate in shaping a positive 2025. Coming up next, Camellia Peterson. What happens when an entire generation never grows up? Peter Pan, Peter Pan, Peter Pan. Take me back to Neverland, Peter Pan, Pan the man. We'll be right back on the Wake Up America Show on the For Liberty Network. Public domain. What if I told you that Wicked, the Broadway blockbuster, owes its magic to a nearly forgotten legal status? Dive into a world where beloved tales are reborn, proving that creativity thrives when stories are shared, not just owned. Once upon a time, L. Frank Baum's The Wonderful Wizard of Oz entered the public domain. But what does that mean? By shedding copyright restrictions in 1956, it opened the doors for creators to take its characters, themes, and worlds and transform them into something entirely new. The public domain is a treasure chest of stories and ideas accessible to everyone. When works lose copyright protection, they become a springboard for fresh imagination. Without it, classics might remain locked away, inaccessible for reinterpretation and reinvention. Imagine a world without wicked or reimagined works like The Wiz that find fresh meaning in beloved tales. The public domain gives creators the freedom to reshape enduring stories, offering new generations twists and turns their grandparents never imagined. Wicked is more than just a Broadway sensation. It's a reimagined tale of empathy and moral complexity. Built on the creative foundation of L. Frank Baum's Oz, Gregory Maguire masterfully shifted focus to the so-called Wicked Witch, offering audiences an entirely new perspective. Through Wicked, we're reminded that there are always two sides to a story. Public domain access made this transformation possible, turning an old villain into the misunderstood hero of her own story, paving the way for provocative narratives and cultural conversations. Consider how stories like Wicked evolved from the seeds of public domain works. Free from legal constraints, creators can explore what-if questions. What if Dorothy wasn't the savior? What if the Wicked Witch wasn't wicked? These explorations birth endless creative possibilities. Without the weight of copyright, creators can experiment. Some results, like Wicked, become cultural phenomena that touch millions. Others may not, but the ongoing cycle of reinterpretation enriches the collective imagination, fueling art, theater, and film for decades. While public domain benefits seem clear, its future isn't guaranteed. Extended copyright laws and corporate lobbying often delay works entering public access. Lengthy protections create barriers for new creators and restrict cultural growth fueled by reinterpretations like Wicked. As audiences, we benefit when creativity flows. Stories reimagined from public domain unite generations, blending tradition with innovation. When access is restricted, culture stagnates, and the foundations for works like Wicked become rarer. Wicked serves as a brilliant reminder of why we must preserve and protect the idea of shared cultural ownership. It's not just about old stories, it's about elevating them, giving them new voices, and inspiring fresh generations of storytellers to continue the cycle. Imagine the next Wicked. Will it be another enthralling tale inspired by the public domain? With your support, it can happen. Like, share, and advocate for protecting the public domain. Our collective imagination depends on it.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back, with sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama!
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion.
Proudly proclaim that the golden age of America is upon us. On January 20th, the United States will turn the page forever. And as you know, I made a series of big day one promises in my campaign. You know them just as well as I do. And 29 days from now, I intend to keep those promises to the American people. We're going to embark on the most exciting and successful period of reform and renewal in all of American history. We're going to cut your taxes, end inflation, slash your prices, raise your wages, and bring thousands of factories roaring back to America. My administration will live by the motto, Promises made, promises kept. We did keep our promises. The actions I have described today are just a small preview of the common sense revolution that's coming soon to America. The people have given us their trust, and in return, we're going to give them the best day one, the biggest first week, and the most extraordinary first 100 days of any president in American history.
The best day one in American history, only days away. Good morning, rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show, and that's on the For Liberty Network. Glad and thankful to have you here. Happy New Year. Click that like button. We'd love to have you be a regular guest on the show, so click follow as well. Come back and join us every Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. My New Year's resolution is more Camellia Peterson. She's joining us on the show. Good morning, CJ.
Good morning. Happy New Year, everyone.
We need more Camellia. All right, Camellia. What's your New Year's resolution, CJ?
Well, we'll start with the simple things, and that'll be that, maybe I'll get my Christmas tree taken down before July this time.
That's a good one. That's a good one. We'll give you that. We just took ours down yesterday because we needed the space. When you got a baby and they're like on the floor and all that kind of stuff, you got to have lots of room for them to kind of like throw things all over the place. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Glad to have you here, CJ. We've got these two incidents that occurred in Las Vegas and in New Orleans, and we're hearing about some other potential incident as well. I mean, I don't know if you were listening to the last part of what I just said, but like I kind of want to do over for the beginning of 2025, maybe. Like, there's a lot of clouds. I'm having a hard time finding the silver linings. Are you seeing any?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you put your conspiracy theory hat on, right? Because it does seem like all of a sudden, like the first day of the new year and 18, however many days left until, Trump is sworn in. And in some ways it seems a little orchestrated, but then I don't know, are people really that organized? Maybe it's just that if all of these individual people wanted to make, the biggest splash and get the most attention, they're going to do it on New Year's, Day. I don't know. I think, we've talked about this before. It gets increasingly difficult to figure out if, what we can do about individuals doing incidents like this. And then there's the question of, are they acting on their own as individuals, or is there some larger force, orchestrating this behind the scenes? And it's hard to know. Yeah,
it's like one of the complex scenarios that we have to deal with on the right, especially being hardcore gun enthusiasts. Like, I think people should be able to own a tank. But there's this guy out in Virginia who was arrested allegedly for a short barrel rifle. At least that was what the feds used to nab the guy, was that he had a short barrel rifle, which, every American should be able to legally own and can legally own. But in theory, the feds have a rule that's supposed to prevent you from not having one prevent you from having one. So, and unless you go through like a tax stamp situation and another layer of background checks. But the guy had 150 bombs, self-made bombs that he created. And the thing about bombs, if you know anything about the law, is that every single bomb that you manufacture also requires a background check and a $200 tax stamp in order for you to have certain explosives, certain ranges of explosives. Now, anybody can go and buy tannerite at like Walmart's or, Bass Pro Shops and go blow up stuff with tannerite, right? But to create 150 bombs, I mean, here's the thing. They got them for something that I don't think necessarily should be a crime. But what you doing over there with 150 bombs, right? And what you doing over there? Like, it's okay to ask questions, right? Just because you're a gun owner doesn't automatically make you a patriot, right? Plenty of gun owners are pieces of shit. Right?
Yeah, that's going to be true of anything,
yeah,
right?
Yes.
So, I don't, that is, gosh, it's always a question of where do you draw the line, right? I mean, but there are going to be people like that. And, how much do you punish, the good people who are doing things the right way in order to prevent, the people who are not going to do things legally? Because I mean, like, Is anybody saying that he got a permit or a background check for every single one of those?
Well, right, and here, no, probably not. So here's the thing: he didn't get the permit for the SBR. Fine, whatever. I don't care. He also probably did not go through. Here's the thing: when you start racking up federal background checks for bombs. I can imagine that, your first time that you contact the feds, the ATF, and you say, I'm going to construct a pipe bomb in my garage. Can I please do that? I mean, they'll probably say no, right? And in which case, it's kind of like, well, F the FBI. And yet, if I were living next door to the guy who had 150 bombs, I might kind of think, the possibilities of this man becoming unstable, or perhaps even the materials that he's containing becoming unstable, it gets like exponential at some point, right? When are you opposing a cost on your neighbor with the amount of explosive ordnance that you're placing directly near their house? And it's kind of like, maybe like if you want to have 150 bombs, then the blast radius of where they are has to be like a certain amount of range away from your neighbor's property. Is that reasonable?
Well, yeah, and I think this is where your principles have to live in reality, right?
Right? Like, did you ever hear about the nuclear Boy Scout, Camellia? Have you ever heard of that story? There was a guy who was a Boy Scout. He died from radiation poisoning because he was constructing dirty bombs essentially in his shed, and all the radioactive isotopes that he had scooped out of what do you call them? The smoke detectors, because every smoke detector contains a small amount of radium. He was doing these science experiments, quote unquote, with this radioactive material, and it irradiated him, and he died. And like the feds had to come and check, and his shed was like hot like a nuclear meltdown facility. So at some point, like, your rights end where your nuclear radioactive fissile materials can explode my face. Right?
Yes. And I do think the argument can be made that when it comes to something like a bomb, like there's only so many things you're going to use a bomb for. And it's not necessarily just going to be your own entertainment.
Well, it's Brandon Herrera in Texas, and if you're Brandon Herrera in Texas, you probably got a lot of bombs and a lot of machine guns and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But if you got 150 pipe bombs in a shed, I think it's okay to kind of ask questions about something like that. What you going to do there with those?
Right. I think it's okay to ask questions too. I also highly doubt that people who are doing things legally, per se, are going to accumulate that many bombs.
No, I know. But then there's guys like me who just like wants to like blow up like bombs anyway.
Sure.
And people in the chat are like, why does AP know so much about bombs? Because I looked into getting bombs. What's wrong with that? I'm a free American. Oh, are you asking questions about me? Hey, this is still America, damn it.
Well, when your neighbors watch this show, they're going to have some questions.
This is all in Minecraft. This is all theoretical. I don't have any bombs. Right. Yes. So it's Barney Style says it sounds like bootlicker mentality to me. See, there you go. You can't win, right? Some guy is like building bombs in his shed and like making nuclear material, and it's irradiating your children's kiddie pool. And you're a bootlicker if you're like, hey, please don't irradiate my kids' kiddie pool. Anyways, let's move on to another subject, Camellia. It's less fraught with peril, but still fraught with peril. The pitfalls. Great article in the Wall Street Journal that I shared with you about the generation, I would say kind of our generation, right? Maybe even a little younger than us. What happens when a whole generation never grows up as American 30-somethings increasingly bypass the traditional milestones of adulthood? Economists are warning that what seemed like a lag may in fact be a permanent state of arrested development. Americans in their 30s have never looked less like grown-ups. Your thought, Camellia?
Yeah, I will say that the further I read in this article, like as my thoughts were, my initial reaction and thoughts were rolling, and the things that were coming to me, I would read a little further along, and they were coming to a lot of the same conclusions that I was. And I don't know that this is Every generation has its thing, and I think that it can be said, and I think it's really in our nature, that every parent wants a better future for their children. They don't want to have their children to have to work as hard as they did for things. And I think especially when you're talking about people who are boomer age and older, you know, when society was not as advanced and things were not as easy, you want your children not to have to struggle as much as you did to survive. I mean, even my parents, like not every, they had some pretty hard times growing up. I don't think they would want me to have to repeat those things. So I think that innate instinct in parents kind of contributes to the sum, and you combine that with what we get used to in just an easier lifestyle, right? I mean, everything is just easier. In some ways, it requires less of us, or we get comfortable and complacent, and we don't require as much of our children in making sure that they learn some of those basic skills. Because you have to be a lot more intentional. And I think the irony here is that as life gets easier because of technological advancements and whatnot, it actually requires more of us because we're not being self-disciplined just out of a basic need for survival. And so there's all of these safety nets, whether they're social safety nets, whether it's like the welfare system or bankruptcy, like people don't really they don't get the consequences of their actions a lot of times anymore. And so I think a lot of this has just kind of been kind of a natural outflow of our progression as a society. And I don't think that you can point to any one thing. Like I know that I saw somebody tweet about this and kind of had a whole thing, and she was like, something changed. I'm like, I don't know that there's just this something changed. I think that this is just kind of the path that we've been going down. And it is just that more is required of us now, and we have to adapt to that.
Mm-hmm. That's a great rant. Andy Opperman, he bolstered your argument. He says, we've reached a stage where the lack of adversity has reduced our character.
Yes.
Interesting.
Sure.
Isn't that crazy that you should want people to go through adversity, right? That you should, maybe you don't want them to go through it, but that without it, you're unable to build character. If you don't have to go through, painful milestones, it's like, the monarch butterfly not going through the cocoon status to become the beautiful butterfly that it becomes. Humans seem to thrive in some ways on adversity, right? And, perhaps that is the mindset of some of these authoritarians, like the more blatant authoritarians that we're seeing online that we're going to talk to Brian Eskow about right after you. They're being called the woke right, for example. Mm-hmm. But these are allegedly the hard men who are in response to the soft times, at least they call themselves. Most of them are sexless virgins, sexless, childless, unmarried virgins, endlessly moralizing about how the rest of us need to support traditional family values while they jerk off online to anime porn and lecture us all about their traditional, morality. However, right, if it is true that soft men create hard times and that hard times create strong men and then strong men create soft times that create soft men that create hard times, if this truly is the cycle that civilizations endure, then which part of the cycle are we in right now, Camellia? Are we in the soft times now, or are we entering the hard times?
Oh, I would say we're on the cusp of entering the hard times because I think that we've had it easy for quite a while, and we are seeing the outcome of that. And that, when we talk about the masculinity movement and how boys have been marginalized, and it has created weak men. And so I think that's where now I do think that. I think we have already been in some of those hard times, but I think that because we've been experiencing the repercussions of that. However, I am optimistic because we have seen pushback against that. We've seen a focus on men being men and returning to some of those cultural values that that create that balance that we need in society. Our tendency is like for the pendulum to swing to one end or the other, and we always are struggling to find that balance in the middle. And so I think that's what we are trying to find now. And it's what we get used to, right? I mean, so they're like, oh, what does it mean to, be in hard times or for life to be difficult? And anymore, life is difficult if you don't have enough money to go get your frou-frou drink at Starbucks, or you can't go out to eat, 3 times a week. Because the one thing when I'm reading through this article, by the way, that I noticed is like she gives a couple of examples of people who are in their 30s and they're living at home or whatever.
With like roommates.
Right, with roommates or with their parents or whatever it is. And they're like, oh, it's such a struggle and I don't know what to do. But there's so many factors in there. I just like roll my eyes because it's like, I'm sorry, like you're having such a hard time, but you have to do a side gig, and your side gig is a vintage furniture store. I'm sorry, what?
Camellia, we all know that you didn't really roll your eyes.
Yeah, just one. But no, I mean, and the other thing too is like kind of some of the context of this was that you're talking about people who are living in New York City. Like, get out of the city.
Yeah.
Because your standard of living is going to have to be higher because it's way more expensive to live in the city. And so I think that that's true. I mean, it's not that these are things that are not true in more, rural suburban areas. They are. I think they're true overall, but I'm not so sure that it is an economic issue. I know we talk a lot about how bad the economy is.
Really?
Yeah.
You think that so you think that the reason for some of the arrested development is not economic?
I don't know that it is necessarily. I know that, home ownership, those kind of things, obviously there are things that are much more difficult. However, like I also think that there are a lot of people who will stay at home and live with their parents because they're looking for the right job. Like they don't work just to make a living and survive. They won't settle for something else because they feel like they're entitled to something that fulfills them. And I understand, like I get it, but I don't think that we have that luxury. And also I think about, people, in Gen Z, Gen Alpha, whatever, the younger people, their normal are things that I still can't even afford to do without going into debt. And I think that they do go into debt to eat out all the time, to have their coffees, from a coffee shop all of the time. And
to buy their iPhones and their iPads and their...
I mean, like, travel is like the norm with those generations anymore. And that's not the norm for the generations before them. I mean, like if you took a vacation once a year, like that was the norm, right? So I think that their expectations are much higher as far as what they would qualify as difficult. It
says the share of childless adults, thank you, Camellia, the share of childless adults under 50 who say they are unlikely to ever have kids rose 10 percentage points between 2018 and 2023, from 37% to 47%, according to Pew Research. You can kick the can down the road, but only so far. The conventional explanation for what's freezing young adults in place is they can't afford to grow up, given rising inflation and ballooning housing costs. You address that. And it is true that 30-somethings have had a run of tough economic luck. And a lot of them are moving back with their parents. But like you say, the Wall Street Journal is showing the same thing that you're talking about here, that the expectations really are higher. Young men are struggling in the labor market, and some of the traditional goals of adulthood really have become more difficult to achieve. But I am looking at this story, and they are showing this guy, 38 years old, in a Brooklyn apartment. I mean, living in New York City like I did, it is not a good indicator of like necessarily the rest of the country, as you have said. But I do like this comment from the guy that they followed. It feels like the instructions for how to live a good life don't apply anymore, and nobody has updated them. Okay, fair point, because I think so too. The rules of the game really have changed. And you and I, we've had lots of conversations about this, about the struggles, the pains that young men go through now. With those higher expectations comes a more limited dating pool, of available men for women whose expectations have been increased by their education, their increased education levels, their increased income levels, their increased power in society levels, right, has placed a sort of a strange Sisyphean burden on men to try and roll the ball up the hill of pleasing women when pleasing women was damn near impossible before all of that happened, Camellia. And now...
I know.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, I had a best friend. I had a best friend recently who had a girl break up with him. She's in her late 30s. She's, like 38, 39 or something like that. And they're a great couple. And he's a wonderful dude. He's like, trust fund baby boy. And, beautiful man, hardworking, but loves to party, right? Just cool as hell, handsome. You know him, but I won't say names. But his girlfriend recently left him. Not for another man or anything like that, to go cheat on him or anything like that, but didn't cheat on him or anything like that. But they were getting close. He wants kids. He actually wants kids, right? He wants a family. He sees my child and he's just he's very jealous. And he's like, that's what I want, right? He has everything, right? More guns than God, money, houses, he's got everything. But he doesn't have a wife and a child. And he's struggling because this woman, admittedly, he lives in one of those big cities, but this woman left him because she's like, I'm not ready for a family yet, indicating that she does want to have kids. She does want to have a family, but the woman's 38 years old. Camellia, who's going to talk sense into the women that think at 38 years old they were going to postpone it? I mean, if you haven't frozen your eggs or something, the odds are fairly bleak. So, I mean, if the expectations and standards on that side are kind of high, there's a sort of, I don't know. It's easier for me to see it from the other side, right? When the grass is always greener, but it's like, square that circle for me, Camellia. How can we meet your expectations? And how can we finally please you enough? Or my friend, a rich guy, handsome guy, the girls that he tries to date, not ready for marriage. How do you deal with that?
I don't know that there is any one good answer or even, great guesses per se. I think that this is a period of time that we are just going to have to go through and deal with the consequences. And I think it's going to suck. But I don't know. I used to, in parenting, I used to be a big fan of natural consequences. I can't tell you how many times my girls heard that phrase. It was like, sometimes you just have to figure things out. And obviously as a parent, we are going to prevent harm to our children as much as we can, but we can't stop them from making mistakes. And I think as a species, as a culture, there are some times where we just have to learn our lessons. And I think that we're just going to have to learn our lesson on this one. And you read, article after article about women who are talking about this. And you do have this younger generation that's coming up and they look at, all of the millennial women and they're like, and I would say younger millennial women and men, and they're like, I want more than that. That's not a life that I want. And so that's where I think the pendulum is starting to swing back the other way. Now, unfortunately, I think the downside to that is because that backlash against it has led to some really grifty tradcon movements that sets up unrealistic expectations for those women. But, I think somewhere in the middle of that, we find our way back. And I do think that it's the kind of the traditionalist movement, so to speak, is not a bad thing, right? I think that is a positive thing for us as a culture. It will look like maybe what some of them think it will. But I just think we're going to have to learn our lesson. And right now, it stinks, right? And it's not always, and I don't know that it's just that it's on women, right? I think
I'm not saying it is.
Sure.
I'm not saying it is.
I think it's just difficult all around. And I don't know how to explain that. I don't know if it's because we are such a work-focused society and we're so mobile and spread out that it just makes it more difficult because we are so mobile that we're not as local community based anymore. And I think this compounds that problem exponentially.
Camellia Peterson, this is a great conversation, and we're glad that we get you on this show every Tuesday and Thursday. at 8 a.m. Central Time. If you're watching the Wake Up America show today and you're liking what you hear, my good friend Camellia, we are not related. Although it was Will Scharf. He said, hey, your cousin was at my event the other day. I guess you went. Okay. I guess you went to his send-off party.
Yeah, he said something about, he was like, I was texting your cousin. I looked at him, I was like, I'm pretty sure he does this. I was like, you know we're not related, right?
Yeah, no, I think
I know.
I think Will Scharf probably tunes in to the Wake Up America show every once in a while and gets the jokes, the inside jokes. Yeah. Camellia and I are not related. We are just really good friends. And I've actually, I'm glad that we decided to do Christmas together next year, Camellia.
That will be fun.
We need more fun people around on Christmas Day. And you guys are kind of new to the tradition, right?
Yes. I mean, relatively so. I was like, we're still kind of trying to find the things that, that are our traditions, so to speak, right? And so and it's like, I'm not going to lie, like it's a little different. And when you haven't done it, and not everybody in the country does Christmas, right? So everybody has their things that you find that are your traditions you embrace as a family, as a friend group, and I love that.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to it just because, Stephanie is kind of new to the tradition as well. She always loved Christmas and like the songs and she didn't know the Christmas story, right? Being raised in her faith. So it's been interesting for me to see her reaction to like the tale of the birth of Jesus and what Christmas means and the traditions of the Christmas tree and how it came from. It was funny though too yesterday. I think her mom's got a little bit of anxiety about like the Christmas stuff when we're hanging around. So we took the Christmas tree down yesterday, and I think I counted like 9 Jewish like symbols that were on the tree that had been hanging there. I was like, where did we get all these? Like, the mother-in-law. I was like, it's a very Jewish Christmas tree, right? But what matters to me on these things is that you're surrounded by people that you love and people that you care about and people that value the same things. And Camellia, our friendship is really unique and special because we share a lot of the same values. We're both from Missouri, obviously, but we're both kind of black sheep in our position. You know what I mean? Like we're with like right-wing conservatives and stuff, and we love our Branson and we love our St. Louis pizza and Kansas City barbecue is the best. But there's just something that's not quite right about Camellia and Austin Peterson. So it's nice that we're not right together.
There you go. That's right. And I will say something that you said about, the holidays was actually something that my girls talked about this year, is that in trying to figure out what we were going to do, like for both of them, the most important part of that was that it set aside a time that we were just together. Because we're like, Felicity and I are together all the time, but Anna Rosa's older, like she's off doing her thing with her friends or whatever. So, we have to be a lot more intentional about that time together. So I think, that is probably one of the most important things. I think it's what people remember from their childhood.
I'm going to go get Brian Esco. We're going to talk about the woke right. Camellia, show us your kitty.
I was like, I didn't know if you can see him. He's hopped up here beside me.
There he is.
Oh, he's so fat. Say hi.
Anything else you want to say, Camellia?
No, I will just say, going back to our topic just very quickly, one of the things I think for people to think about, kind of mulling this over, and I think we should, think about this problem larger, is that so much of this too, I think, comes out of the government policies that we have created in an attempt to make life easier for people. And so like we can talk about that another time, but as we're going into, a lot of states are going into your legislative sessions now, and we are gearing up for that. And it starts at home, close to you. National stuff, we can talk about that all day long, but you need to pay attention to what's going on in your state because that's where it starts.
There it is, Camellia. Think local. Trying to get the Missouri Film Office to call me back. I got a documentary to shoot this year. Camellia, I'm very glad to have you here. We appreciate you. We hope that we will see you again next Tuesday. Okay? Happy New Year.
Yep. Have a great day, everyone.
Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Let me
Public domain. What if I told you that Wicked, the Broadway blockbuster, owes its magic to a nearly forgotten legal status? Dive into a world where beloved tales are reborn, proving that creativity thrives when stories are shared, not just owned. Once upon a time, L. Frank Baum's The Wonderful Wizard of Oz entered the public domain. But what does that mean? By shedding copyright restrictions in 1956, it opened the doors for creators to take its characters, themes, and worlds and transform them into something entirely new. The public domain is a treasure chest of stories and ideas accessible to everyone. When works lose copyright protection, they become a springboard for fresh imagination. Without it, classics might remain locked away, inaccessible for reinterpretation and reinvention. Imagine a world without wicked or reimagined works like The Wiz that find fresh meaning in beloved tales. The public domain gives creators the freedom to reshape enduring stories, offering new generations twists and turns their grandparents never imagined. Wicked is more than just a Broadway sensation. It's a reimagined tale of empathy and moral complexity. Built on the creative foundation of L. Frank Baum's Oz, Gregory Maguire masterfully shifted focus to the so-called Wicked Witch, offering audiences an entirely new perspective. Through Wicked, we're reminded that there are always two sides to a story. Public domain access made this transformation possible, turning an old villain into the misunderstood hero of her own story, paving the way for provocative narratives and cultural conversations. Consider how stories like Wicked evolved from the seeds of public domain works. Free from legal constraints, creators can explore what-if questions. What if Dorothy wasn't the savior? What if the Wicked Witch wasn't wicked? These explorations birth endless creative possibilities. Without the weight of copyright, creators can experiment. Some results, like Wicked, become cultural phenomena that touch millions. Others may not, but the ongoing cycle of reinterpretation enriches the collective imagination, fueling art, theater, and film for decades. While public domain benefits seem clear, its future isn't guaranteed. Extended copyright laws and corporate lobbying often delay works entering public access. Lengthy protections create barriers for new creators and restrict cultural growth fueled by reinterpretations like Wicked. As audiences, we benefit when creativity flows. Stories reimagined from public domain unite generations, blending tradition with innovation. When access is restricted, culture stagnates, and the foundations for works like Wicked become rarer. Wicked serves as a brilliant reminder of why we must preserve and protect the idea of shared cultural ownership. It's not just about old stories, it's about elevating them, giving them new voices, and inspiring fresh generations of storytellers to continue the cycle. Imagine the next Wicked. Will it be another enthralling tale inspired by the public domain? With your support, it can happen. Like, share, and advocate for protecting the public domain. Our collective imagination depends on it.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back, with sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama!
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
And what is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm Austin Peterson. It's time to rise and freedom. Happy New Year. Happy 2025. Thanks for joining us live on the Wake Up America show. Austin Peterson, that's me. They call me AP. And I'm kind of mad because Elon Musk is out there saying AP stands for something terrible and bad. It's the Associated Press. I'm not associated with them, okay? I'm not associated with the press. It's me, AP, for Liberty at rumble.com. Glad to have you here. Click the like button. We'd love to have you be a regular guest on the Wake Up America show. That's Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. So if you click the follow button, you'll be able to find me. No problem. You're going to get an alert on your mobile phone when we go live. But I feel as if now you are in my thrall. So you will remember Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. Live, the Wake Up America show, rumble.com, AP for Liberty, right? You won't forget. Will ya? Better not. The woke right. It's a term being used by primarily a guy by the name of James Lindsay, who says that we've got a little bit of a problem in the Republican Party. The MAGA group of people. Are we MAGA, right? I voted for Donald Trump. Does that make me MAGA? Robert F. Kennedy Jr., former Democrat. Tulsi Gabbard, former Democrat. Now they're Republicans. Now they're going to work for Trump. Now they're kind of MAGA. A lot of new people have joined MAGA, if you will, or the Republican Party, and are, Johnny-come-latelys perhaps, but patriots nonetheless, and voting for Donald Trump. Like my next guest, who spent the last year interviewing luminaries on the internet, like myself, obviously. He's got his own show. His name's Brian Escow, and we had a great conversation a couple of months ago on his podcast to talk about, I was trying to explain to him why I think he should vote for Donald Trump. Turns out he did, and in sort of poking his head around these days, as a newly minted Republican voter, if you will, he started to see a few things that are quite unsavory. People on the right, allegedly, who claim that libertarians, classical liberalism, limited government, Ayn Rand was wrong about everything, while strangely saying that Ayn Rand was wrong about everything, but that Ron Paul was right about everything, which strikes me as quite odd because there's a lot of overlap. Anyways, his name is Brian Eskow, and he's joining us live right now from California, or at least I thought he was, but we lost his video feed. Maybe he can hear us. Hey, Brian, can you hear me? No, you can't. No, Brian Eskow. That's what I get for doing a live show. Wah, 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 wah. Brian Eskow is connecting to audio and can't hear you yet. Good morning, pineapples. Looking very good to very nice. Good morning, pineapples. Looking very good to very nice. Ding a 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 ding. I'm trying to figure out what to do. Ding a 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 ding ding a ding a ding a ding a ding. It's a good thing that I have a million billion clips. Whew. We're just waiting. What? Wait. What happened?
Do not come.
Excuse me?
Do not come.
I'm going to come.
All right. Well, until Brian Eskow gets here, enjoy this takedown by comedian Whitney Cummings on CNN.
2024 election fried our brains. The Democrats couldn't hold a primary because they were too busy holding a body upright. Are we still rolling? Am I off?
Go for it.
It was amazing that the pro-choice party didn't give their voters one when it came to the presidential candidate. Kamala was forced on us so hard you'd think she was patented by Pfizer or Moderna, whichever one's... Oh, God. Andy just gave me a very scary look.
No!
Good stuff. Brian Eskow joins us live. Hey, Brian.
Hey, man. How you doing?
All right, man. If you ever decide to do it live like I do, like this, your show instead of pre-record, that's the kind of stuff you'll have to deal with. So good luck.
Well, it's worth it. I know it's worth it on your end. You're doing an amazing job. Happy to be here.
Hey, Brian, you're a Jewish guy. You joined the MAGA coalition recently, and suddenly you're surrounded by people who hate you and think you should die and go to Auschwitz and die in the camps and die in the fires. Kind of odd, but hey, congratulations on your new engagement.
Thanks so much. What an intro. That's an intro I've been dreaming of my whole life. Thank you so much.
Hey, Brian, I'm glad.
Doubling down on the Jewish thing. My fiance is a very nice Jewish girl, so we're going all in.
Yes, my Jewish girl was asking if your Jewish girl was in fact a Jewish girl, so now she knows. But I'm glad that, Brian, that you have been questioning, having an open mind about what it is that you believe. That's what your podcast is about, trying to determine, you had come from a long line of Democrats, voting Democrats. You decided to vote for Donald Trump because you thought the left had gone too far. Great. I'm glad, I welcome you on the Republican Party to join me and other liberty lovers to try and take our country back and truly make America great again. But there are some unsavory elements that you're encountered online, which we're told, by the way, don't exist. And how dare you call them by the N-word, right? Not the N-word that is not the N-word, but the other N-word. You know what I'm saying, Brian? The woke right. Is it a thing or is it not a thing?
No, I definitely think it is. And before I went all in to vote for Trump, because when Kennedy endorsed him, that's when I switched immediately. But before I did that, I had to think it out for myself and talk about this group. They do exist. You can't pretend they don't exist. And I assess that they comprise about 1 to 5% of the overall MAGA movement, maybe, if that, probably closer to the 1%, but they're very loud online. Now, before I go any further, I want to acknowledge that there is an extreme on the left. It's a lot larger than 1 to 5%, I think. And so, as you stated, I moved away from the left because I thought the extreme was too big and too vocal and getting too much attention. So the woke right does exist, and they came out of the woodwork during this H-1B visa issue, and I don't know anything about the details of the visa issue. All I know is I saw a lot of racism and hate and anti-Semitism online, and I called it out. And yes, I find myself in this kind of odd position where I voted for Trump. I believe in the team he's putting together, and 9 out of 10 of what he stands for as a candidate. But I definitely don't believe in this hate, and I don't think Trump does either. So they definitely exist. And if you want, I can go into what I think they are.
Well, go ahead.
A reaction to critical race theory.
Yeah, let's go, Brian. Take it away, brother. It's your show now.
Sure, right on. So obviously I'm new to politics. I'm new to actually paying attention. Going to law school a few years ago was, the beginning of my actually paying attention, because like you were saying with Camilla earlier about 30-year-olds being very immature, that was me for the longest time. So I finally got engaged, went to law school. I'm maturing. It's all good. But I was just really not paying attention to the news. So I'm new to this. I'm certainly new to the right side of the aisle, so I could be wrong, but this is how I see it. Having studied critical race theory in my final year of law school just a few years ago, I know what CRT is. And what it is this concept of anti-objectivity. That's the phrase you hear. This society is not objective. It's not neutral. It's a white system. Traditional American culture, which is private property and a minimal government posture. This is what you learn. Those are white values. This is a white system, and asking non-white people to live in that is just unfair. It creates all sorts of from the microaggression to the disparity in the statistics and wealth, whatever you name it. All social ills can be traced back to trying to put a square in a circle, so to speak. And that was very disturbing to me. You know, I certainly thought this traditional American culture is open to everyone. That's where I'm coming from. And so the material was controversial, but even more disturbing than that was the comments coming out of my students' mouths. Keep in mind, I'm 10 years older than these students. I have work experience. So I've seen a little bit of the world, and these people are very anti-white, very anti-money. So it was all very disturbing. And my reaction to that was to say, okay, I guess I identify with the Ron DeSantis's, the Ted Cruz's of the world. This was all happening at the time when Ron was on TV every night railing against it. Ted Cruz was questioning Justice Jackson in the nomination hearings about critical race theory. So it was all very timely. And so I said, I guess I'm not a Democrat anymore. And that's what started this journey of me searching for the political identity. And what I concluded before I voted for Trump was, you know what? MAGA is the reasonable reaction to that ideology, which, by the way, is not just confined to the law classroom. If it were, okay, maybe it's because it was stimulating, it was interesting, I loved it, but it upended my worldview, and I had to conclude that it is throughout society, permeated. So what I found myself saying is, yeah, I guess I am MAGA, which means I don't agree with critical race theory. Let's erase that. Let's go back to this 1980s, by the way, 1990s, where make America great again means to live in that colorblind ideal, not to look at the colorblind ideal like it's actually a chokehold and an obstacle in the way of racial equity, right? So coming from that education, I see this fringe online, hateful, very, very angry, very anti-Semitic. Jews are letting foreigners in to replace white people, and America should only be for white people, as like a mirror of this critical race theory. But America should only be for white people. They say, yeah, we agree with you, CRT people. America is a white system, but you're ruining it, and we have to keep it for only white people. No, I don't go there. I just go to, let's keep it as a colorblind society. Let's acknowledge that it is a white system in a sense. It didn't come from Africa. Let's acknowledge that. But we don't need to keep it. We don't need to be for whites only. I'm not there yet.
You know, on the cultural, discussion, it's interesting that, you have the United States and Israel, right, acting very much in a fashion that is in concert, right? You have like a lot of collaboration and an alliance of sorts between the United States and Israel. Many on the right who are critical of Israel will also be critical of the United States and figures in the United States, not just neocons, right? Not just people who are, involved in trying to keep the United States intervening in every conflict around the world, but these people seem to have a special interest in dividing the United States from its Jewish traditions. So it's an interesting, when you have a discussion on culture, you kind of have to try and understand where some of these people are coming from. Because Brian, if we're talking about, the National Socialists, right? If we're really talking about Nazis, if we're really talking about people, the anti-Semites that you mentioned earlier, right? Their stated belief is that you, Brian, are not a white person at all. And so in that consideration, I mean, there are many Jews who say openly and proudly that they don't consider themselves to be white. Many woke left Jews talk smack about white America all the time, and it sort of provides fuel to the fire for those, Fuentes characters, for those right-wing socialists, National Socialists, to gain steam. How do you sort of deal with that? You know, being an observant Jew, how do you sort of deal with that criticism, noting that you are one of the escaped plantation slaves, right? You, like many Jewish people, vote for, support the Democratic Party and spread critical race theory through Hollywood and through the institutions of government. How do you sort of combat that, you know, that identity politics when you yourself very much embrace an identity?
So it's funny. I'm actually not a very observant Jew at all. I'm leaning into it a little bit more, you know, in the last year or so, but I definitely would not. In fact, I would call my Jewish identity another extreme source of confusion for me. There's, you know, without getting it fully into my story, this push and pull. Who is Brian Eskow? Was never a particularly religious person. I'm definitely very spiritual as I get older, and I'm starting to lean a little bit into the Jewish identity, but I wouldn't say I'm observant. But it's a really interesting question because my dad is a strong progressive, and he is, I don't know if he's a critical race theorist, but he's certainly among the legions of progressives who are critical of the classic American story, the traditional American culture. They do think there's a lot of unfairness, and he might just be an economic guy like a Bernie Sanders. He might not get into all this race stuff, but he's very race conscious in the sense that inequality and injustice is always on their mind. And when it's always on your mind, you kind of start to sound divisive. You kind of start to feel like, what is there anything that unifies us? Can we be proud to be American? And so, yeah, it's a strange place to be in. On one hand, growing up in a suburb where there's big American flags waving in the town plaza and your hands over your heart, singing the Pledge of Allegiance every day, every morning. And then you're also raised with this critical worldview where it's like, hey, and maybe there is a bit of this Jewish part where it's like, we want to repair the world, do good, do mitzvahs, you know? But so is there actually a tension between wanting to do good in the world and loving your country? Probably not, but I still have to explore that.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And I don't think that there really have been good answers that have been posed yet. I'm like you, I'm a truth seeker. Like I'm trying to find out what the truth is. And, you know, I think that real truth is very rare. But when we're grappling with these questions of identity and identity politics, the white man's identity politics is strongly associated with these darker ideologies, with National Socialism, right? So when white people play the identity politics card, it typically tends to end in authoritarianism that is in some ways the mirror opposite of leftist communism or leftist fascism, like, you know, Evita Peron, you know, Argentina leftist style politics. There's many flavors of communism and fascism, right? It's not all just, you know, Adolf Hitler and Hermann Goering, right? There's many different ways that authoritarianism rears its ugly head. But I guess we do have to ask ourselves, how can we embrace our identities and be proud of who we are? Because I'm proud of my ancestors and my ancestry and what they are. But it's kind of like, it was more the ideas that they supported than necessarily their ethnicity, which is kind of an Achilles heel in some ways, right? Because when you're a Jewish community, the strength of the Jewish community lies in the solidarity that exists doing those mitzvahs, right? Yeah. There's no white community of, you know, I could call the Aryan Brotherhood and maybe they'll bring me a casserole or something if my wife gets sick. But I mean, it's not like there's no hotlines, if you will. There's no fundraisers. There's certainly no social clubs allowed. Like the oppression that has been laid bare in diversity, equity, and inclusion against white males, specifically in hiring departments and corporations, all the way up to our government, is a severe problem, because the answer, as you have said, to the left-wing socialists and left-wing critical race theory has been right-wing critical race theory, has it not? How do we, I mean, maybe you don't have an answer for this. These are big problems and questions. So, you know, identity politics, good, what when Jews and blacks and whoever else does it, but bad when white people do it? I mean, how do we deal with these inconsistencies?
It's bad when both people do it. And I'm glad you prompted me to say this. I want to acknowledge the anger of some of these hateful people. I mean, listen to the critical race theory that I just described to you, all these DEI policies. You could understand. And by the way, listen to the fact that I acknowledge that our traditional American culture is somewhat white. You have to acknowledge that. So are people trying to erode that? Yes, they absolutely are. So you have to give respect to the fact that there is a movement, a coordinated movement to attack white culture, to attack traditional American culture. And it really becomes a question of assimilation. And I guess Jews are fortunate in the sense that they have a strong sense of community. And so I guess what you want to say is America a white culture? I don't know, but it is its own culture, and we should have expectations of people to assimilate. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
So
like nobody would expect, if I moved to Japan, nobody would expect that I should be able to behave like an American in Japan. Right. It would be understood that when you go to a country that to an extent you are to embrace its social norms. You embrace the values of that nation. But for some reason, people think that they can come to the United States and behave however they want and, drive trucks into crowds because they don't like America's decadent culture. And Islam has something important to say about American culture, which is that, we're all decadent and heathens going to kufar is what they call us. It's like the N-word for non-believers, right? But there is this othering that exists, right, in the United States, an attempt to other, like the people who had a foundational element, foundational role that they played in building the United States. And earlier you did say that individualism, right, and American values and culture is part of a white culture as critical race theory identifies, right? I mean, is individual liberty unique to white people and to America? I mean, the fascinating thing, of course, on this one is an addendum, and I'll let you take it and roll with it as we end our conversation, is that libertarianism the modern libertarianism was largely created by Jewish people. Ayn Rand and Ludwig von Mises and Murray Rothbard. But the grievance politics is kind of how I would label the woke right. How do you think about it, Brian?
Yeah, it's an overreaction, right? It's an overreaction to a very legitimate issue, which is that this culture, whether you want to call it white or whether you want to call it contemporary American, is under attack. That is interesting. I guess the final thought I have is that the hate that you see coming out from this fringe group, which I think is 1 to 5% in response to the H-1B visa issue, it dilutes and distracts from what may be a legitimate economic argument. Now, as a libertarian, you might think that there isn't a legitimate economic argument, but the debate about it is really ignored because of the hate. And so I see the woke right as people who are overreacting to the identity politics from the left and have gone a few steps too far. We should get rid of the critical race theory on both sides and just go back to treating people as individuals. I was sitting learning this material in those classes, and I was not thinking, oh, only white people, this is only white people. I was thinking anybody can be here, and this is all bullshit.
Brian Eskow. He is the host of his own podcast, and it's called Searching for Political Identity. He's a construction manager and a Vikings fan. Well, nobody is perfect. Brian, where can people find your show and learn more about you and follow you online?
Oh, just find me at Brian Eskow. It's all from there.
There you go. At Brian Eskow. You can see the spelling of that, E-S-K-O-W, at the bottom of the screen. He's on California time, so everybody say thank you to Brian for getting up early. And if you end up following Brian over at x.com, tweet at him and say, hey, Brian, I saw you on the Wake Up America show. AP for Liberty told me to give you a follow, so I did. There you go. That way I can convince you to get your butt up early again next time and be on the show again. Anything else you want to say, Brian, before we go?
No, it's been an honor. Thanks, Austin.
Hey, Happy New Year, Brian. We appreciate you very much. We hope to see you again real soon. Good luck and congratulations on your engagement. There we go. All right. Well, the Wake Up America show is brought to you in part by you sweet little pineapples.
Can you bless me with something?
Oh, gosh.
Money-wise?
Yes.
Please.
Can you suck it?
I have to say, excuse me, thank you to our friend Entropy Nomad over there in the chat who just bought like a bunch of subscriptions for everybody else. The fun part about the monthly subs is, guys, is that we're increasing the number of people who can win the monthly prize drawings, and then tomorrow we're going to give away a bomber jacket on the show. So do not miss tomorrow, Freedom Family Friday. We're going to give away a Department of Government Efficiency bomber jacket on the show. And everybody who is a monthly sub, just like Heartland Okie I saw just became, guys, it's amazing. Thank you. Is now eligible to win. So if you're not a monthly subscriber yet, today would be a great day to do so. You get a 20% discount at the For Liberty shop. If you want the discount code for the monthly subs, send me a text to 573-319-1586 or sign up for our text alerts that you'll see if you text the number 1776 to the bottom of the screen there, 844-558-9626. That's our text marketing line. And you can also contact us through that text line. You'll get a confirmation that you've joined our text messaging list. And then just say, hey, what's my 20% off code over at forlibertyshop.com? Because I'm a monthly sub now. Just make sure you tell us who you are and all that stuff, and we'll take your information and we'll confirm that you are a potential winner. And you get the 20% discount. So thanks, Entropy Nomad. Might I recommend, if you're going to go to forlibertyshop.com and get anything today, that you get the delicious Boston Harbor Black. Boston Harbor Black. Go to forlibertyshop.com, get you some Boston Harbor Black. It's the English breakfast loose leaf tea. It's delicious. And then I say it is time for us to say
public domain. What if I told you that Wicked, the Broadway blockbuster, owes its magic to a nearly forgotten legal status? Dive into a world where beloved tales are reborn, proving that creativity thrives when stories are shared, not just owned. Once upon a time, L. Frank Baum's The Wonderful Wizard of Oz entered the public domain. But what does that mean? By shedding copyright restrictions in 1956, it opened the doors for creators to take its characters, themes, and worlds and transform them into something entirely new. The public domain is a treasure chest of stories and ideas accessible to everyone. When works lose copyright protection, they become a springboard for fresh imagination. Without it, classics might remain locked away, inaccessible for reinterpretation and reinvention. Imagine a world without wicked or reimagined works like The Wiz that find fresh meaning in beloved tales. The public domain gives creators the freedom to reshape enduring stories, offering new generations twists and turns their grandparents never imagined. Wicked is more than just a Broadway sensation. It's a reimagined tale of empathy and moral complexity. Built on the creative foundation of L. Frank Baum's Oz, Gregory Maguire masterfully shifted focus to the so-called Wicked Witch, offering audiences an entirely new perspective. Through Wicked, we're reminded that there are always two sides to a story. Public domain access made this transformation possible, turning an old villain into the misunderstood hero of her own story, paving the way for provocative narratives and cultural conversations. Consider how stories like Wicked evolved from the seeds of public domain works. Free from legal constraints, creators can explore what-if questions. What if Dorothy wasn't the savior? What if the Wicked Witch wasn't wicked? These explorations birth endless creative possibilities. Without the weight of copyright, creators can experiment. Some results, like Wicked, become cultural phenomena that touch millions. Others may not, but the ongoing cycle of reinterpretation enriches the collective imagination, fueling art, theater, and film for decades. While public domain benefits seem clear, its future isn't guaranteed. Extended copyright laws and corporate lobbying often delay works entering public access. Lengthy protections create barriers for new creators and restrict cultural growth fueled by reinterpretations like Wicked. As audiences, we benefit when creativity flows. Stories reimagined from public domain unite generations, blending tradition with innovation. When access is restricted, culture stagnates, and the foundations for works like Wicked become rarer. Wicked serves as a brilliant reminder of why we must preserve and protect the idea of shared cultural ownership. It's not just about old stories, it's about elevating them, giving them new voices, and inspiring fresh generations of storytellers to continue the cycle. Imagine the next Wicked. Will it be another enthralling tale inspired by the public domain? With your support, it can happen. Like, share, and advocate for protecting the public domain. Our collective imagination depends on it.